Imagine you're a long-time criminal and you finally get caught. You realize this is the end of your run. You think to yourself, well, at least I get free food and shelter. A month passes and your hearing comes. You stand in front of a judge expecting you'll only get life. So what's the verdict?
You're gonna die.
What?
So you must be asking, what is the death penalty? Well, the textbook definition is the legal punishment of death for a crime, also known as capital punishment.
So you do the crime and you lose your life?
It's more of a fall under basis criteria. The death penalty is a controversial topic due to it being seen as cruel and unusual punishment, particularly that it violates human rights such as the right to life.
Capital punishment is seen as inhumane, and more arguments against the death penalty state that it risks innocents being killed for crimes they did not commit.
Even countries around the world have ended it, which makes the United States the minority country that still allows it.
But the other side that's for the death penalty say that it serves as justice and closure for victims' families, deters crime, and is retribution and preserves moral order.
Now, the BBC ethics guides on capital punishment have stated that main reason listed for support of the death penalty is the saying an eye for an eye. Nevertheless, many others state that it's a misunderstood phrase.
In contrast, on the opposing side, the BBC states that the latter views capital punishment as vengeance rather than retribution.
The Supreme Court struck down the death penalty in 1972 following Furman v. Georgia, stopping executions nationwide and saying it was unconstitutional.
But they switched up, and in 1976 following Gregg v. Georgia, allowing states to use it if they follow new guidelines. The most recent change regarding the death penalty is that in 2005 when they ruled that it was illegal to execute offenders under 18.
Now, the law is at the hands of the state. In our subjectively beautiful state of Ohio, the official method of the death penalty is lethal injection. Let's take a closer look.
How was the death penalty introduced in Ohio? Well, it goes back to the 1800s. In 1885, Ohio's legislature required that all executions performed within the Ohio Penitentiary in Columbus, Ohio, must be conducted by hanging. It is then replaced by the electric chair as it was viewed as a more ethical way to kill someone.
Ethical? That's like super hell and mega hell. You cannot win.
Yeah, anyway, Donald Rainbow was the last person to be executed by the electric chair.
Electric chair.
Oh, anywho, following the Ohio soon removes the electric chair as a method of execution in 2001.
But before that, Ohio reinstated the death penalty following Furman v. Georgia. Soon after that ruling, electrocution was removed as a method of execution, leaving lethal injection as the only method.
Now, with lethal injections, the FDA has placed warnings on Ohio concerning where it's imported. But that's besides the point. The point is that Ohio death penalty is nowhere to be seen.
What'd that mean?
Like it's gone. Like it's just gone, girl.
Elaborate? Hello?
The governor, Mike DeWine, placed an unofficial stop or a moratorium. No one is calling it that, by the way.
Well, people with proper vocabulary call it that.
What are you trying to say?
Nothing. Carry on.
Anyway, a hold on the death penalty has been placed since 2019 due to the struggles of obtaining lethal injection.
Yeah, now some lawmakers lean towards complete abolition while others are proposing new cocktails for injection.
Anywho, death penalty laws vary state by state, but let's deep dive into one state in particular, Baltimore!
Baltimore, Maryland. Maryland, basically almost the polar opposite of Ohio in terms of political ideals and parties, has abolished the death penalty in 2013. It has been replaced by life without parole.
Through this, though, Maryland has heavy restrictions on said penalty. In 2009, when we were all little fetuses being dilly and dally, all laws were passed requiring DNA, videotape confessions, or clear video evidence of guilt before charging death.
Since 1638, 309 people have been executed in various ways. In 1809, Maryland passed a law stating that the punishment for first-degree murder was death.
Soon after, that was changed to offering life.
Then after that, the jury was given an option to decide capital punishment in 1916.
The jury, not the judge?
Yeah, you would think that would be typical. They would say guilty with or without capital punishment.
Well, the law said that death was mandatory for murder over the first degree was struck down by the Supreme Court, which deemed it unconstitutional under the 8th Amendment following Woodson v. North Carolina, after Gregg v. Georgia ruling in the same year. Maryland imposed new acceptance laws.
In 2008, the Maryland General Assembly tasked the Maryland Commission on Capital Punishment to provide recommendations on how to make the death penalty free of error. The commission submitted their report on December 12, 2008, which heavily recommended that Maryland abolish capital punishment, which brings us to 2025 as Maryland is now without a death penalty.
Well, some might be asking, how does the death penalty even fall under federalism? But the death penalty is a concurrent power. The federal government and the state share it, which also creates tension.
How does that create tension though? I don't know. In theory, that's pretty straightforward.
The death penalty is up to the states, but the federal government can enact death sentences for federal crimes.
Doesn't this fall into the supremacy clause since federal law overrides state law?
Eureka, it does. This makes jurisdictional overlap because a crime can be both a federal and state offense.
Due to this, people say it's an overreach. According to the CFS in the article about capital punishment, they cite the core protections for criminal defendants in the Bill of Rights were originally designed and interpreted to constrain only federal factors.
So what does that mean? As of now, there's still clashes of jurisdiction between states and the federal government.
Of course, with every opinion and every law, there's going to be interest groups advocating for or against it. There are many interest groups that are for and against the death penalty, some being large groups that are well known, like the NRA, or law groups like the Fraternal Order of Police, or FOP.
And victim support groups like National Organization of Victim Advocates, also known as NOVA, and the latter being American Civil Liberties Union, also known as ACLU, Witness to Innocence as WIT or WIT, and even the ABA, American Bar Association.
Now consider there are fewer groups that openly say they support capital punishment. Comparing the FOP and WIT, there are differences.
FOP advocates for their Blue Line Act, which, and I quote, Thin Blue Line Act, which would expand the list of aggravating factors in the death penalty terminations for those who target, kill, or attempt to kill a law enforcement or other public safety officer.
While the WIT, or WIT, which I think is interesting, is a group made up of real former death row inmates. On their side, they state that our mission is to empower exonerated death row survivors to be the most powerful and effective voice in the fight to end the death penalty and reform the justice system in the United States. They have a list of quotes from exonerees on the front page, which one I think is significant is the one that's said by Ray Crone, the 100 death row exoneree. If sentencing to death and possibly executing an innocent person isn't cruel and usual punishment, nothing is.
Many say that the death penalty has real impacts, the main one being that it decreases crime rates. As stated by the Heritage Foundation, some crimes are so heinous and inherently wrong that they demand strict penalties up to and including life sentences or even death. Most Americans recognize this principle as just in line with that. They say majority of studies that track effects over many years and across states or countries find a deterrent effect.
Although the opposing side states that the risk of wrongful death, imprisonment, and bias is too high, the Equal Justice Initiative, or EJI, argues that our death penalty system treats you better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. And following that, they also note that the death penalty targets the most vulnerable people in our society and corrupts the integrity of our criminal justice system.
I feel like in some situations the death penalty is plausible, in others it's just cruel and inhumane.
Me too. However, who are we as a society to have the power to end a life? Like, do we have the right to kill?
Yeah, and if we do have the right, is it really just? Is the government morally justified in taking a person's life in the name of punishment?
Speaking of government, should federal and state death penalty standards be the same? Even more, has the definition of cruel and unusual punishment changed? For me personally, I honestly think it has.
And even more, does the death penalty violate the Equal Protection Clause? The death penalty seems like an issue that has too many loose ends. Many argue that the death penalty is circumstantial, while others say it's outright immoral.
Death penalty is in the hands of the states, but 23 states have took a stance by abolishing the whole. So this makes you wonder, will there be more to come? In Ohio, many people are anticipating the governor, Mike DeWine, will end it. It is said that he's preparing a statement on the death penalty soon.
And if Mike DeWine actually strikes it down, what will follow? What will the future of capital punishment in America be?
This has been Ashley and Eden on Trip and Chat. We hope you enjoyed our podcast.
See you next time.